My firewood stockpile in the basement's getting pretty low, as is our pellet supply. Got quite a bit of ice built up on one of the downspouts there. See how far we can make it without turning the differential lock or the four-wheel drive on. Actually, in the Polaris Ranger, it's all-wheel drive. I made a video in the past of how to choose the drive mode in the Ranger. It's been a number of years since I made that. I'll put a link to that video up above if you haven't seen it. Keeping the momentum, we're doing pretty good here so far. But we have to climb this hill, so we'll see how it goes. Before we climb the hill, in case you've not seen that video yet, I'll show you what the choices are here. Open rear differential, so when you're going around to turn in your yard, you don't dig it up. Locked rear differential. And all-wheel drive. Do have a little bit of a load in the bed. This is some of that hickory I split. I've been working on that old hickory. You can see how pretty the wood is. I take this up to the seasoning rack because it's not ready to burn yet. Give it a year or so, and then we're going to get some of the seasoned wood to take into the house. Hi, and welcome back to Purple Collar Life. In today's video, we are going to restock the firewood in the basement because we've got a real cold snap coming up here. We're talking like -10, -20 degree wind chill factors. So I want to get a good supply of firewood in the basement to keep that fire going, to keep the house warm. But that got me to thinking about firewood, and I've seen a lot of videos lately about the value of that shorter firewood for solo stoves. And I've actually made a video in the past about the value to me of longer firewood, 22, 23, 24 inches, because that gives me double the burn time out of a piece of firewood than if it were 16 inches. I'll put a link to that video up above that I talked about that actually last winter. 23 and a half. 23. 23. But today we're going to take a different look at things because firewood is kind of evolving over time. The needs for firewood, what people are willing to pay, and what people are using firewood for. So we'll talk about that once we get up into the woods here. I'm going to give the Ranger a try, see if we can make it up there. This snow we have here today is a really good wet packing snow. It was not when it came down. This snow was light and fluffy, easy to blow around with the blower, which I made a video about. But now that it's the hard packing snow, it's just perfect for making a snowman. And it's interesting to see how the snow changes. When it was snowing, it was colder. Today it's actually in the 30s. It's a warmer day, so the moisture level inside the snow kind of has changed and make it more of a packing snow than a light fluffy snow. Now in a couple days when it gets freezing cold again, it's going to be an all different type of snow altogether. It's going to be like that frozen solid crusty snow that you can't pack. Okay, we've got it with the open differential. My guess is we won't even make it up this little incline. Well, we're still moving. Doing pretty good. So right here, where we chewed it up a little bit, that's where I stopped and started going. Remember, in just one-wheel drive essentially. Now we'll switch it to all-wheel drive so we don't dig up the turn when we go up to the rest of the firewood stack. Here's a good demonstration of why I saved the IBC tote to make a rain cap. You can see how the snow is all stacked up on top of that. My firewood underneath is all cherry. The front got a little bit snowy because the snow was blowing when it came down, but for the most part that all looks pretty good. This one was covered with a piece of plastic or a tarp. You can see that just doesn't hold the weight of the snow, but at least the firewood underneath it is still dry. I have a spool of binder's twine that I use for attaching my rain caps to the bins. Obviously, it is disintegrated, and my rain cap flipped upside down and blew here into the woods. So my hickory firewood got all covered with snow. But it's still a year away from seasoning, so not a big deal. Now, it used to be that people all wanted firewood the same way. 16 inches long, split into normal sized chunks. And that trend is now changing. People want smaller stuff, kind of like this long, this small. So this is probably a little bit longer than they want. This is about 14 inches. This is probably 12. These were just pieces of that hickory that I cut when I was moving it. This is a nice short piece, but still too big for what people want it for today. People today are using it primarily for recreation in like a solo stove, where they're using smaller pieces of wood to get a nice fire ambiance, or to cook a marshmallow over a small fire pit that can sit on top of your picnic table or on the patio. It used to be people bought firewood because they were using it like we use it for, which is to heat our home. I think at least around here, there's less and less of that happening now. Less people are heating their home with firewood. And around here, that could be because we did have a kind of a Marcellus shale boom a couple years ago. The price of natural gas went down. Plus, firewood's a lot of work. Maybe people don't like to have to cut, split, and stack firewood. We enjoy that process. The other thing is there's not that much land. So people who buy property may not have, lots of acreage like we do with standing firewood on it. Like, this is a piece that's perfect for me. I could actually go with this being a little bit longer, 20 inches, 23 inches, but this is about 16. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you're seeing this trend, especially if you follow some of the wood hounds on YouTube. More and more of them are cutting their wood 12 inches long and splitting it very small for that market, which is growing, of people who are using firewood just for kind of decoration. Not decoration to sit, but decoration as a fire. Let's call it recreational fires, rather than our fire is pretty functional. It's actually heating our home right now. And the problem with these smaller splits, this one's okay, but some of them that are really small, they mess up my stacking system. I've said in videos for years, I am the world's worst stacker. That's one of the reasons I like the IBC totes, because I don't have to be a great stacker. It kind of contains everything in the basket. Now I need to go and get some rope to tie this back down, because the first gust of wind, this will blow right back off. And this rope, just in the last, you figure a month ago it was fine, but the freeze thaw must have made it just very brittle. You can just kind of pull it apart now. That's the problem with binder's twine, but when you have binder's twine around, it seems like you use it for everything. That firewood stack's looking good. That oak's looking good. We've got some older wood that we're gonna get to. We'll bring it in first. I always like to use the oldest stuff first. And definitely if I were cutting and splitting and stacking firewood to sell it, I'd be doing just like those other YouTubers and those other firewood sales guys. I'd be cutting it smaller, splitting it smaller, bundling it smaller, and selling it at that size where you can really demand a premium for the wood. If you're selling firewood as cordwood, like a cord or 2 cords or 3 cords at a time, 16-inch pieces, you're not making nearly the money that you could be if you started cutting that firewood at 10, 11, 12 inches long, splitting it smaller into what a lot of us would call almost kindling, and then selling that in very small bundles for that market. Now this wood has been here for a couple years. This is not great firewood. This isn't even firewood I could sell in any market. But if you are going to be selling firewood to that market that wants the little pieces for the solo stove, it has to look nice. The presentation has to be nice. The size of the firewood, the split of the firewood, it's all part of that look and feel that those people are looking for who are recreationally burning firewood. Those of us burning it for heat, doesn't really matter what it looks like, as long as it's not all punky or pithy. Like this piece right here is actually pretty pithy, but I'll still throw it in the wood burner and get some BTUs off of it. The IBC totes really do protect the wood. There's some snow on them, but that's just surface moisture. I made a video about how to deal with surface moisture on firewood. But the pieces that are further back, you can see there's no snow on them. This one's perfectly seasoned cherry. Looks like most of this bin is a mix of cherry, maybe some oak, something a little bit more stringy. I'm not sure what that is. This upcoming week's going to be as cold as we've had it in a long time. We've had some pretty mild winters the last few years. Last winter, I think maybe I plowed the driveway once, if at all. I can't even remember now. You can see a mouse was living in here. Had a little bit of a nest on top of my firewood stack. That's pretty common. The nice thing about moving this firewood around in the wintertime is that don't have to worry as much about snakes and critters. Hopefully I don't come across a snake in here. I've mentioned before, Jennifer really does not like the look of these IBC totes. And I did start just starting stacks of firewood in the woods. But times like this where I'm pulling these nice dry pieces out from the rain cap, keeps everything protected, nicely stored in these bins. I could grab the pallet forks and probably just take this whole bin closer to the house. So I'm definitely interested in hearing from those of you who sell firewood. Have you made the switch? Are you no longer selling the 16-inch pieces in larger quantities? Have you switched over to selling 10, 11, 12-inch pieces, smaller splits in smaller quantities, because that's where the biggest payback is? I look forward to reading those comments down below. I'm going to take this in the house and unload it. This will probably be enough to get us through a good number of days in this cold weather. But we will keep the fire going 24/7 in the freezing cold, because that is what we primarily use to heat our house. We've got lots of videos of using the buck stove to heat our home versus using electricity and how much money that saves us. The colder the days are, the more money it saves us. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative and entertaining, leave a thumbs up. I know we weren't completing any projects in this one today, but just want to kind of have that discussion with you guys about the changes we're seeing in the firewood industry. Again, I don't cut, split, and stack firewood to sell it. I cut, split, and stack firewood to burn it for heat. But if you were a person who sold it, I'd like to know from you guys down below, are you changing the way you do firewood? Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll see you again the next time.
Yes.